Okay, Sports Matters TV and a WrestleSlam podcast special, but joined by the sensation Masha Slamovich. First of all, Masha, how's things with you? How are you keeping?
Well, everything's doing pretty great here, ready to kick off a very busy month of March. How about yourself?
All is good in Ireland. We're happy to see you on our screens frequently, which is good. You're making that impact, as always, in Impact Wrestling. So let's get to Impact Wrestling first. They're very, very lucky to have you there. So how's life over at Impact for you right now?
Oh, well, I'm having a good time. Personally, I can't say the same thing for anybody who steps in the ring with me, but I'm doing rather well over there.
You were, Nick. You have an incredible reputation. I personally know you from the indie scene. Obviously, look, you're so young, 24 years old, and already you have achieved so much. But let's talk about the early days. A lot of fans want to know, first of all, how you got involved in wrestling.
Well, I think I found my start in wrestling how most other wrestlers get into it. I was a very young child, maybe like 3 or 4 years old. And I just, I opened my television one day and I saw professional wrestling, not really knowing what it was. But after watching it for like 10 minutes, I was just completely mesmerized. And I knew that that was going to be my path in life. And I just never let it go.
And like for us Europeans, obviously there was massive exposure growing up. Obviously, we had WCW, WWF, we had TNA Impact. What could have stars could have stood out for you first? They obviously grown up. We all had fan favorites, wrestlers that we worship. But what could have wrestlers for you could have made you say to yourself, right, I want to actually try this out?
I always found myself to like the, more bruiser style, I suppose. Wrestlers like Chris Benoit and Fit Finlay really stood out to me when I was watching. And, I think that's where it really all began for me.
And like you have that very, very dominant display in the ring. Like you don't mess with Masha. That's a fact, first of all. But you know what I mean. You don't let opponents off lightly. Where does all that aggression come from? I like it, by the way. It's aggression's good.
Well, I was always just a bit of an aggressive person ever since I was a kid. I'd always get into a whole bunch of fights, and I was in school. I was quite the handful to my mom. And I suppose that I saw myself in the wrestlers that I had named, and I saw almost an example of what I was feeling in my head. So I thought wrestling would be the perfect outlet because I saw people who were like myself and they were also fighting, except they were getting paid for it and not penalized. So
And like we have to speak, obviously, you know what I mean. We speak wrestling, and look, we're lucky enough to have many Impact stars on over the years, and in general, we work very close on the indie scene across Europe. It's not an easy road, Masha, as you know. It's tough, it's grueling. There's dark nights, there's tough mornings, a lot of bumps. You know what I mean, a lot of injuries, a lot of risks. What part of that did you find the hardest from the early days? Obviously, from the get go, it's quite hard. But what parts did you find hard at the start?
honestly, I can't even remember finding anything to be so difficult that it was something that stood out in my mind because anything that I found difficult, I vowed to master, whatever that was. Once I got into wrestling, it was very straightforward to me. You either do it and succeed or you don't and you fail. So any difficulty that was put in front of me, I was happy to take it on. And I was so happy and honored to even, be allowed to join into the professional wrestling business and to start training that to me, none of it really seemed hard. Even, like you said, the late nights, the early mornings, the dues that you have to pay in the business, it all, I was grateful for all of it to even be given the opportunity to do that.
And we have to be honest, that European indie scene is incredible. Like we look at America, and America is the dream. We look at all the European stars that they venture to America, and that's their number one goal. But how important was that European scene to you when it comes to indie wrestling? Because look, we look at all the European wrestlers today, and they're all incredible. 5-star matches, just like yourself. How important is that European scene for you, and how fundamental was that for you before making that move to the States?
Well, funny enough, I actually didn't get to wrestle much in the European scene up until recently when I started doing work with WXW in early last year, I believe it was. But a lot of my favorite wrestlers were definitely influenced by the European scene, namely the Dynamite Kid, probably one of the best wrestlers to ever do it, point blank, period. And he started out and got his roots in England. So I always thought that translated in his work, and it kind of, ran down because I spent so much time watching any piece of match footage or anything of his that I could find, you know.
No, I love it. So obviously Impact Wrestling, we're seeing you on the screens a lot more. Obviously it's a big time for all Impact fans with the Zone. We have the Impact Plus, Impact Insiders. Why is it a great time right now to be part of Impact Wrestling? Obviously, look, we know the legacy there via TNA Impact and Impact itself, but obviously it's a great time for all us fans, especially in Europe, to see you on our screens.
Listen, Impact Wrestling is 1000% the channel or the programming to be watching, not even just because of me. I truly believe that we have one of the best women's divisions across the board in professional wrestling. And even going past the women's division, we have such a locker room that's full of talented, wrestlers who have been doing it for 5 years and wrestlers who have been doing it for 25 years. So there's just a vast amount of knowledge and experience and skill that we display every single week on any place that Impact can be streamed in the Zone, in the Impact Plus app, and so on and so forth.
And like speaking of that female roster, we have to speak of some females on that roster. I'm going to go Taylor Wilde, a veteran of Impact TNA, obviously a woman you know quite well. What's your thoughts on her, first of all?
Listen, I don't have any issues with anybody, and I think that everyone's a great wrestler. But once they step in the ring with me, it's all a different story, and all respect goes out the window.
Straight to the point. I love it. Now, speaking of women's championship, Mickie James obviously stands in your way. She's holding your belt, Masha. She's holding that belt. She's keeping it warm, nice and shiny for you. When are we going to see that strap around the waist? Because look, surely it's just a matter of time.
Oh, it surely is a matter of time. And you know what? Everything comes at its due moment. And I simply believe that you can't rush perfection. So I think everyone better just keep on watching and keep their eyes peeled for what's coming next.
And like, I suppose we have to give her props. Look, she's done her time. She's a legend in the wrestling industry. Obviously, broke terms many months back, years back, when obviously she appeared in the Royal Rumble as the Impact champion. So look, we have to give her props, but she's obviously a worthy opponent to you. You're looking forward to many challenges ahead. When do you reckon that title will be around the waist?
I can't even tell you specifically about the one title, but all I can say is if anybody remembers that photo that Ultimate Dragon took with all 10 belts, well, I'll certainly be recreating that photo soon, and the Impact belt is going to be upon them.
I love it. Now, we have to mention, obviously, look, Impact is a great place to work, great environment, but the fact that they do allow wrestlers to obviously do stuff outside of Impact, it's huge. For the wrestling fans today, that's obviously something that we want to see. And who knows, we might get to see you back in Ireland, or look, come to Ireland eventually, which will be incredible. We're always asking Impact to come back to Ireland. European tours, we're always crying out for them. But for you personally, how important is it that Impact do allow wrestlers to do stuff outside of Impact? That's obviously a great thing for a wrestler.
Well, it's incredibly important, as important it is to me, everything that I'm doing at Impact Wrestling. I've still got a lot of things going on outside of Impact. I've got the match against Nick Gage coming up on March 17th in New York City. I'm also facing Sandra Moon. We're going to be fighting for the inaugural West Coast Pro Wrestling Women's Championship. And of course, during WrestleMania week, I'm facing Aja Kong for Prestige Wrestling. So aside from wrestling for Impact, I'm keeping very busy on the independent scene.
And what's it like meeting all the fans? Look, we know your fan base is huge. You're very, interactive on Twitter, on social media. What do your fans mean to you? Because look, they play a big role in all wrestlers' futures. Obviously, the more fans, the better. But look, Your matches are always incredible. You know, there's absolute dominance in your matches. So what do the fans mean to you, first of all?
You know, the fans, there are everything to us professional wrestlers. And if that wasn't something that we all learned during the pandemic, then I don't know when that lesson is ever going to sink in. Because if anybody remembers wrestling only 3 years ago in front of an empty building in complete silence, then that should make you appreciate the fans that much more. Because being in that ring and hearing the fans just going wild and screaming and seeing the emotion on their faces, it truly is one of the most rewarding experiences to me personally.
Love it. There you hear it, guys. Now we have to mention matches. As you said, look, you're for me, you're always in a 5-star match. Every time you're on our TVs, or we get to watch you on replay or on YouTube, it's always box office. Masha Slamovich is box office. It's ratings, it's sense, it's good business. You've had some great matches these last few months, these last few years. But look, for you, what kind of matches have you enjoyed the most? Obviously, they're all great matches. We know that. But if you could pick 2 or 3 matches that stand out for you, and you see it yourself, look, this journey's been worthwhile, what matches would you pick?
Well, if we're really going to have to pick some top matches out of the bag, I definitely want to name myself versus Jordan Grace at Bound for Glory last year at Impact Wrestling. Probably one of my favorite matches of my entire career, which is closely followed by the match that we had at PWG not even a month after our Bound for Glory match. And of course, adding into that list would be the rest of the matches that I've had at PWG. For example, the one against Yuka Sakazaki, and the 2 appearances at Bola against Alex Shelley and against Brian Keith, as well as the match that I had for the Impact World title against Josh Alexander from AAW. Those are definitely my top matches that I would recommend that everybody watch.
I think we'll all agree on that. And look, we have to mention Josh Alexander. Look, he's just like yourself, one of the leaders in the locker room at Impact. He's incredible. Look, Canadian, obviously he's definitely shining a light well for Impact, isn't he? He's a great guy and a great wrestler.
Oh, 100%. He really exemplifies what it means to be a champion and what it really means to be a pro wrestler. The dedication and the hard work that he has put in for years and years on end deserves to be much more rewarded, in my opinion.
No, when I speak to people from Impact, I always try and get them to flinch or give me a little smirk, right? We're crying out for a European tour, right? And it needs to happen. I'm asking for 2-3 years. Now, I know there was a pandemic. I know there's been a lot of stuff happening, right? But do you think we're any closer to having Impact return to Europe? The demand is there. Fans all around Europe are crying to see the Impact stars come back to Europe. 10 dates, 12 dates, all the big cities around Europe. Do you reckon, Masha, we're any closer to seeing that happen in 2023? And should it happen?
Oh, it 1000% should happen. And I will be the first person cheering on Impact Wrestling to return and do a European tour. I thoroughly love wrestling and traveling and getting to see the world. I think that it's one of the best perks of the job that we get to travel and spread the art of pro wrestling everywhere, as well as take in the beauty of the world, the architecture, all the different cities that we go to. So I certainly hope that Impact will be making a comeback to Europe very soon.
We hope it happens very soon too. Now, there was a couple of fan questions we always have to ask, okay? It's familiar ones, right? A great question we have from Jeff. He wants to know, obviously you're very observant when it comes to the indie scene and in general what's happening around the world, but what kind of female stars would you like to see come over to Impact that are not there already? So look, there's so many stars in Europe and across America and Canada and Australia and New Zealand. What kind of females should come over to Impact, and who would you like to see come?
Well, I've only got one little statement for you. Impact Knockouts versus Stardom.
That makes sense. That's mind-blowing. And obviously Stardom tickles your fancy. Look, we know how respectful Stardom is. We've seen our own in Ireland, Seshmont Martina, go over to Stardom. We know Tony Storm's been there. You've all done your hard work there. Obviously, Stardom is something that could potentially happen. It could be like a little forbidden door where you have the Knockouts versus Stardom. Do you think that would be box office if Impact could make it happen?
Oh, it would be box office indeed. It would be the cream of the crop, in my personal opinion. I mean, there's just dream matches waiting to happen from the collection of wrestlers on either team.
I love that. That's definitely a title point when it comes to this interview. I'm glad you mentioned that. That's something that we'd love to see. Any special TNA Impact moments over the years that you've enjoyed? Look, we know we have the Plus, the Insiders. People can watch all the old stuff on YouTube. What's your favorite TNA or Impact moment over the last 10 plus odd years? Even as a young teenage girl growing up, did anything ever stand out to you and say, "Wow, I love this TNA stuff, this Impact stuff"?
Well, funny enough, when I was younger, I used to watch a whole lot of the Impact X division. For some reason, assuming that I was going to be a high flyer when I wrestled, but clearly that is not the case. So I thoroughly enjoy watching the Impact X division, but I don't know about those moonsaults from the top of the X and all that stuff for me personally.
And like we have to mention that X Division Championship. What's not to say that you might decide one day, right, I want to add a third or fourth belt or a 12th belt or a 13th belt to my shoulders, waist. Could we see a female win the X Division Championship? Is that something that that could happen?
Well, I think if anybody knows me, then they know that gender is not something that falls under consideration when choosing my opponents. I don't care if you're a man, you're a woman, or anything in between. You should, if you have a belt on your hands, you should be looking around your shoulders to see if I'm coming or not.
No, you don't fear no one. Where does that come from? Is it a genetic thing? You absolutely fear no one. You can put Mike Bailey in front of you, Josh Alexander, Trey Miguel, Mickie James. You could put anybody, and you face them. Where does that no fear come from?
I don't know. I always remember myself being like this from about as far back as I can remember, but I just believe that fear kills and fear is a distractor. So even if you do have those feelings of fear towards somebody, it's better to turn on logic and figure out how to approach the situation as opposed to experiencing the emotion that's going to distract your judgment.
I love it. Now we have a girl here, Stephanie in Cork. She's an up-and-comer wrestler. She's quite young, but she's starting young. She wants to know, Masha, what advice can you give her? She loves your mean aggression. You don't take any, in the ring. You're an absolute threat. People have to be on their toes when you're around. So, what advice can you give her moving forward in her journey to become a wrestler and perhaps follow in your footsteps?
My advice would be this one phrase that I heard that personally has been very useful to me over the years, and that would be go by feel. You know, sometimes it's very hard to make the right decision once it's time to make choices, but you genuinely have to follow your gut and follow your heart sometimes. And if it feels right, do it. And aside from that, I would just say that wrestling is a very unforgiving business. And if you want to succeed and if you really truly love this business, the more you put into it, the more you will get out of it. So when I say commit your life to it, I mean truly you have to put wrestling first and foremost, above anything, above anybody, above your family, above everything, and once you really give it your all and you pour your blood, sweat, and tears into it, eventually it's going to give back tenfold what you've poured into it. So just perseverance is the most important, to never give up and to just keep fighting, because eventually, if you keep knocking hard enough, the doors will open.
I love it. Masha, as always, it's an honor speaking to you. You're an absolute honor, privilege to speak to. We spoke Josh Alexander, Stardom, which would be our headline. Knockout versus Stardom. I think that's breaking news right there. The future, obviously, the championships around the waist, much, much more. But listen, we hope that European Tour happens in the near future, because us Europeans need it. We are desperate, and we never say that, but we are desperate to have Impact Wrestling come to Europe. We're going to catch you very soon. And just before you go, can you give us a quick promo? Can you say, I'm Masha Slamovich, and you are watching WrestleSlam?
Hi, this is Masha Slamovich, and you're watching WrestleSlam.
Absolute pro as always. We appreciate it very much. We'll catch you very soon, and we're looking forward to seeing that belt around your waist very soon indeed.
Thank you very much. And I know you guys got, what is it, OTT in Ireland, I believe? Well, You let them know that Masha Slamovich is available to travel anywhere because, like I said, I will be in Germany shortly and I would love to make Ireland the next stop.
I love it. I'm going to make sure they see that. That's something that we need and it has to happen. So it's an honor as always, Masha. Thank you very much for your time. And hopefully we do see you at OTT in Ireland very soon.
Certainly. You have a good day. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.